Oh, hey there, and welcome to the Ope-Eh Three-Way Pro Wrestling Podcast. I got the suds and I got my buds here today with Donnie and Pierce on this beautiful Wednesday, your Thursday, whatever, fellas. How are we doing today?
I gotta start getting a can for these things. You guys are just like you
I
got it.
just
You
have a
got it
glass.
locked in.
I have a glass of water today. Like,
I thought I heard a can crack open though on your side too.
oh no, just
Oh, it's just
well, I'm opening my Zins, I guess.
oh
Maybe that's close.
Your
maybe.
Pierce is the responsible one today.
Oh, okay. All right. We as we're like live recording this, we got our delivery package from WWE for Elimination Chamber. It's like literally like a live unboxing that you're gonna have to listen to.
Oh boy, here we
Yeah,
go.
so when we got those seats for SmackDown, they were supposed to give us like gift packs, and they didn't get across the border. So they sent it to us now, and we have a Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes autographed picture to hang up on the wall, as if I needed another Cody Rhodes
Fancy.
picture. But
That's fucking awesome.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. Is there anything else in the box, Marta, or is it just these? Okay, just two photos. Okay, cool. All right, sorry about that, guys.
Were you expecting more?
I feel like it came with more when we were at the show the last time, but I can't recall, to be honest with you. Like we did a house show where we both got autographed photos of Ricochet, which is like,
Oh,
like if you know people are going together, like you don't need to give them the same autographed picture, but let
sure.
alone my opinion
Hey,
on Ricochet. That's not important to this, but
hey, the value
um,
on that's going up
Hey,
every day.
hey, current Ricochet is great.
yeah,
He is a very fun character.
He's definitely turning his life around.
And
I
it
mean,
doesn't
I
true.
go
actually
exactly kayfabe wise, but
kind of sort of care about him now. We're talking about him, so that
That's
says
true.
something, eh?
That's true. What else are we talking about today, though, guys?
well, it's the return of Rivals, and we're talking Mania
Hey,
rivalries today. Shout out to our buddy Kyle from the Wells Mania podcast. He's doing his March Madness for Mania matches, and a lot of the matches on there are part of this. So it's a nice little combo. If you haven't checked out the Wells Mania podcast, definitely do so. It's great. Shout out to Kyle. And we do have something else first, but before we get to that, we're gonna talk. As always, follow us on socials: X, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're posting a lot more on X. We now have a check mark for whatever that means. Um, but
Means people get to see our comments first.
because we're special.
it means John Cena finally followed us.
Yeah, we did get the
Whether or not
John
he
Cena.
was whether or not he was waiting for that to surface before he deemed us worthy. You know, very
Or maybe it's
very
the
human
magic
over
of how
waiting
he's
for us to
doing.
pay money. Maybe it's what now?
It's maybe because I asked him how he's doing.
That could very well be too. You have a way with this thing, Pierce. You have a way with the Twitter machine. I will
I
say.
do. I do. I don't know how, but I got magic
No looking
tweets.
gift horses in the mouth, bud. You don't look them gift horses in the mouth. You don't.
No, we don't. But I think it's time, as always, we start the episode off right. Donnie, can you hit me? Don't have too much today, but we got some pretty exciting stuff. 2001, the go-home edition of Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania X7, 17, whatever you want to call it. Vince revealed that they were doing a live simulcast with the final WCW Nitro, famously announcing he had bought his competition. During the simulcast, famously, Jeff Jarrett was fired by Vince because he apparently held Vince up for like $200,000 at No Mercy 98. If you haven't heard that story, it's quite wild.
I believe it.
And Vince is in the ring talking about him buying WCW, and on screen his WrestleMania opponent Shane McMahon comes up and says that the contract to buy WCW says McMahon Shane McMahon. Obviously, one of the biggest moments. Start of the unfortunate invasion. But in the main event, Stone Cold and WWF champion The Rock defeat the Brothers of Destruction before their main event at WrestleMania X7.
Yeah, that's a crazy kind of a dream match scenario. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening leading up to WrestleMania X7 and throughout. And we'll talk
Can
about
they
that a bit too.
coexist? And the answer is yes. In that case, they could.
In that particular case, yes. In that one
Until
specific
the
scenario.
end, where I don't know if it's there, but they start fighting, and then you get the My Way package, which is just perfection in a video package. Shout
The
out
magnum
Limp
opus
Bizkit.
of WWE production. To this day. And
I like
WWE Vault,
the
I will
Daniel
say,
Bryan monster video more, but that's just me.
nope. I stand by the fact that WWE Vault knew what they were doing when they released the best of WWE hype videos leading up to WrestleMania, and they put My Way first.
And
That's
what
where
was
it belongs.
second? What was second in that video?
Probably the Monster video, if I recall correctly.
No, it was
Unless
the
it wasn't.
Miz's WrestleMania 27. You can hate me now video.
Which was not bad. It's like
Not a
your
bad
average
video,
PLE.
but WrestleMania
You bookend
27
it.
is like the worst WrestleMania.
Yeah, it certainly was not the best. I mean, good on them for trying with the Miz. I didn't think the package for him was bad.
No,
They
it's a
did what
good
they
package,
could.
but I don't want to think about WrestleMania 27. It sucks.
That's fair. All right, the less
Uh,
we say about it, the better, then.
yeah, we'll continue with 2001. As I said, WCW held its final Nitro. Booker T would defeat Scott Steiner to win the WCW Championship. And in the main event, Sting defeats Ric Flair by submission. And those are the two men that really define WCW as a whole. So it's good that they were able to put a cap on their rivalry and a cap on WCW together.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to jump ahead to 2019. Charlotte Flair defeats Asuka for the SmackDown Women's title on SmackDown Live going into the Mania Triple Threat. She did not need to win the title. It still makes me mad. And then obviously it leads to the Mania 35 main event where it's winner take all with her, Ronda, and Becky.
Hashtag Becky Two Belts.
Hashtag
That was a
Asuka
great
deserves
closing
better.
shot, too. Oh, Asuka always deserves better. Nobody's really ready for Asuka. That's why she never gets her due.
Yeah. On the same show, Big E and Xavier Woods would win a gauntlet match. In the final match of that gauntlet, they would defeat WWE champ Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan to secure Kofi his WWE championship at WrestleMania, cementing Kofi Mania and obviously leading to Kofi's WrestleMania win and his first WWE championship. First and only at this point. Probably first and only ever.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. This match is known for, I think, the second to last part of the gauntlet. The Usos came out, and Big E and Xavier are spent. The Usos get on the mic and they say, "We went to war with the New Day. We know what you guys have been through. Good luck at WrestleMania. We forfeit." Just perfect.
Yeah, I do remember that. I was like, huh. I was like, why the fuck?
Sense.
And then I was like, first I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm like, yeah, sure. Respect. Not like we need to see
2020.
another Usos New Day match.
I'm all for an Usos New Day match. Those two teams were having incredible chemistry.
Fair.
Let's skip ahead to 2020. The second set of tapings took place at the Performance Center for WrestleMania 36. I believe they aired on Taped Away about 2 weeks later. This is where Drew would defeat Brock for the WWE title, not in the main event of WrestleMania. The main event of WrestleMania was Drew versus The Big Show that aired on Raw the next night.
Oof.
And of course, the Firefly Funhouse, where Bray Wyatt would get his one and only WrestleMania win over John Cena, and probably the best cinematic match they ever did.
I don't know. The Boneyard match was pretty good.
The Boneyard match was good, but like the Firefly Funhouse was just
It was
like
different for
perfect.
sure. Like if we're talking about like cinematic experience, yeah, I'll give it to the Firefly Funhouse. If we're talking about an actual match, like that wasn't a match. Whereas the Boneyard match was actually a match and done very well.
Right.
Mhm.
Both of them were done very, very well. Everything after that was not great, but
Yeah, the two Money in the Bank matches they had that were pre-recorded, those were not particularly good.
where Baron
Where Rey
Corbin murdered
Mysterio,
people.
yeah, Rey Mysterio got thrown off a rooftop and did not die.
And Aleister Black was thrown off the same roof, but there was a smaller roof underneath.
Oh, that explains everything.
Well,
And then they raided
you know,
Vince
mean-
McMahon's office.
and Vince had to be, oh, what are you doing in my office? And they had to, cuck to Vince essentially.
Oh, was that with Bryan and Styles of all people too?
Yep.
Of course.
And then finally, 2021 SmackDown, Daniel Bryan is added to the Edge and Roman match at Mania 37. They would go on with Roman. Nobody really thought Roman was going to win, and then he stacked them both up and pinned them both. What a visual.
Man, Daniel Bryan did not need to be in that match.
Well, do you know the reasoning why he was in that match?
I'm going to assume it was because Adam Copeland didn't want to get pinned.
Maybe, but they were trying to get him to re-sign. But he said no, and then he went back to being Bryan Danielson in AEW. So,
can I say I'm very surprised that they did not tap into the mythos behind that match? Like when you consider that all three guys had effectively career-ending scenarios occur that would have cut them down in their prime. Bryan with his neck, Edge with his neck, Roman with his variety of health issues, right? And they all came back. So I thought they would have played on that. Like these are three guys that effectively are Phoenix rising from the ashes to main event WrestleMania, but they didn't go with it, and I was very put off by that. I figured it was a very easy gimme.
I think they could have if Roman wasn't already deep in the tribal chief lore at that point.
You don't want to make him look vulnerable. I get it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with that. Is they didn't want to make Roman look weak. As
you
Vince
gotta
always
make
says,
Roman
gotta make
really
Roman
strong.
look really strong. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So
They did follow that line all the way to the end. That's for damn sure.
so that's why I don't think you got to see any of that. But
it's
Gotta
unfortunate
make
though.
Roman look really strong.
In any other situation, that would have been a really good story, I think.
it's okay.
But right, you can't have sympathy for the tribal chief.
Punk will have
Just
another
can't.
opportunity to do that in a few weeks.
That's probably the hardest match to call on the card so far. But we're not talking about the future right now. We're going to talk about the past. And
Hell
we're
yeah.
going to talk about Roman looking really strong in exactly one of the two matches he's in. Because it's WrestleMania Rivals, boys. And my choice is Cody versus Roman. More or less Cody versus the Bloodline in total, but Cody Roman specifically.
Okay, why did you pick that
You
one?
gonna lead us off?
I mean, it's part of one of my favorite storylines in the Bloodline, which I think is one of the greatest stories WWE's ever told, and wrestling has ever told too. Cody's return and becoming the prodigal son again, and then Cody's loss and then win. It's just such a great story, and to the point where it's kind of with the WrestleMania 40 build, it was a pseudo, Yeselmania. It was a pseudo Kofi Mania. It was Cody Mania because they could have ran Rock Roman. They could have said, nope, fuck the fans, but they listened to the
Yeah, they
fans,
almost
and
did.
then we got a much better storyline with The Rock becoming the final boss. And I don't think face Rock versus heel Roman would have been any good. I think the match would have been fine, but you got the great ending of WrestleMania 40 Night 1, where it was the first time where there was like continuity between the two main events. And then you got what I think is like the most WrestleMania main event of all time in Night 2, and Just genuinely 3 of the best WrestleMania matches ever, with Cody Roman 1, Cody and Seth versus Rock and Roman, and then Cody Roman 2.
Okay. Well, if we're going to talk about best matches of all time, then you're going to have to put some respect on my candidate, and that is The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, because those two guys had arguably 2 of the best WrestleMania matches ever at WrestleMania 25 and 26. Their first one in 25 uh, is widely respected as one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, never mind WrestleMania match.
It ruined the rest of WrestleMania 25. Nothing could touch it.
It sure did. With winning a 2009 Match of the Year from PWI and Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Also won Match of the Year at the Slammies. Multiple legends in wrestling history have said it's one of the best matches ever, including Bret Hart, Triple H, Tony Schiavone. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. Schiavone, thank you. Jim Ross.
You know that if you watched AEW.
Yeah, well, we all know how that goes. And even in the pinnacle of his WWE work, Dave Meltzer gave that match 4 3/4 stars out of 5.
It should be 5.
Yeah,
Dave
of course. Dave's an idiot. He said it was too predictable.
It's too predictable. Undertaker almost fucking died in it, and it still worked.
Yeah. And then
Deuce from Deuce and Domino couldn't catch.
Their match.
How can he die if he's the champion?
Their match at WrestleMania 26 was not as good, but still very good, and it definitely was the best match on the card that year. So,
as one of my favorite finishes in any match ever, with Taker pulling out for I think the first and only time that I can think of, the super finisher of a jumping tombstone.
So that's what I've got.
Brandon, what do you got?
Well, I kind of picked the low-hanging fruit here, boys. But I mean, really, what can be said about it more than has already been said? Rock and Austin is the definitive Mania feud. It is a trilogy that spans 4 years, and each match that has taken place within it has gotten better and better. Each match tells its own story. Each match speaks to an evolution of both characters. I mean, WrestleMania 15, very much corporate Rocky, a people's champion in the making, and the people want him to be their champion. But then Vince, in his infinite wisdom, has to stifle the momentum of The Rock to put him in his group as Stone Cold Steve Austin, the middle class, lower class hero, rises up. And as corporate champion, Rock defended against Austin in their first match, and you get all the hijinks of the Attitude Era, right? You get Vince involved, you get Mankind jumping in a ref shirt. Austin takes the 1-0, though, and really sets the table for their rivalry to follow. And it's interesting. I think of their rivalry in Mania as very much like a helix, right? Like, you have points where they separate and they do their own thing, and then they come together at points of intersection, but they're always somehow connected in some way or another. They definitely were the building blocks of the Attitude Era. Pro wrestling in general, they brought it to a level that no other duo has, from my memory, for my money. But you have that at WrestleMania 15 where they do a whole bunch of different things in between. You get CEO Steve Austin, you get the infamous Rikishi drive-by for Austin. For The Rock, you get the Rock and Sock connection and the highest Raw rating in history, I believe, to this day, at 8.4 Nielsen for This Is Your Life.
It's the highest rated segment. The highest rated moment was a match between Rock or Austin and Taker, which was like a 10.3 or something.
But easily, it's reflective of what The Rock himself brought to TV, brought to the company at the time. And this is Rock on his own. Never mind Austin. And Austin's doing his own thing too. Leading up to WrestleMania 17, they're kind of kept apart. We had Austin winning the Royal Rumble in 2001. leading up to the match that he had with Rock after Rock had to get squeezed in at the very last minute at no way to beat Kurt Angle. And then they had that awesome promo on SmackDown where Austin's talking about blurring the lines between professional and personal, where he needs the WWF Championship. And you start to see these little flickers of desperation, kind of like how you saw it with Cena at the press conference after the Royal Rumble.
I need it more than
I
anything.
need it more than anything you can possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. So flash forward to WrestleMania 17, where they go into just one more fight. And this made history, boys. I'm telling you, Austin pulled out all the stops in this match. He pulled out the $1 Million Dream. He pulled out a steel chair that Vince whacked him with, and then later he whacked him with. Bloodied him up, beat him down, pinned him 1, 2, 3, 2-0 in the oh Christ, is it the Alamo Dome that they were at that year in Houston? I didn't want to say it wrong, but he aligned with Vince, which was fucking crazy. You talk about how people never saw Cena Rock coming. Nobody saw Austin Vince coming ever. So Austin sticks around in the WWF, takes on the 2-man power trip, and Rock goes out to become the Scorpion King and really flesh out his career in Hollywood. So they're kept apart again. Speaking of 4 3/4 star matches, another 4 3/4 star match happened with this. The 2-man power trip versus Chris Jericho and Redacted for the tag team championships was also rated 4 3/4 stars following WrestleMania 17.
And since we're bringing that up, Cody Roman 2 was also 4 3/4.
Yeah, but
yeah, they just get so
in
close.
fairness, Dave was a bit more friendly to WWE content by the time Cody and Roman came around. He'd been giving out multiple 5s by then. Wasn't
this is true.
Pure drought of like 20 years without a 5-star match for WWE.
Which is bonkers because you had Kurt Angle that whole time.
Yeah,
I can go on about that.
Match. And that's another podcast where we need to just fucking yell at Dave Meltzer.
Just rip apart Dave Meltzer. Just call him out on every folly.
I feel like that'd be the longest podcast we'd ever have, just talking.
We're breaching 3 hours, boys.
Will Ospreay has 49 matches, and he said he's like, if Kurt Angle doesn't have one, I don't deserve any.
Bingo.
Wow. Smartest.
I mean, good on Will though. Yeah, Will's not one for intelligent anything. But
hey, Will's a good dude.
He's nice, but
he can be a mark for himself, I found. So for him to say something like that is nice to hear.
That's big. Yeah.
That's where I was coming from with that. But all right, so we got our 3 candidates here.
Well, I wasn't even. Hey, I didn't even finish.
Oh, you weren't finished? You were definitely going the longest. I assumed you were finished.
Oh, my bad. No, we went from 17 to 19, which was. I will keep this short and brief in this part of the segment. And I will say 19 was the best match. You talk about how Michaels Taker 26 compared to 25 was sort of 19, I watched it back, was definitely the best of the 3. I mean, Rock was dominant through most of the match. Austin took all the licks, but it was really Rock fully actualized and finally getting his W. Funny enough, JR is like...
Go ahead. Sorry.
JR is funny enough is in the match. He's like, Stone Cold has never quit on any of us. And this is, just following that whole controversy where he can't lose to Hogan at WrestleMania 18. He can't lose to Brock. I mean, granted, that was a whole other thing. First round King of the Ring, whatever.
He took his ball and went home.
Sure did, but he came back to lose to The Rock just one more time.
Now,
and
respectfully to that 25 to 26 match, it's hard to be better than arguably the greatest match in wrestling history. So,
sure, that's fair.
let's be fair with that. Like I said,
yes.
it wasn't as good, but
that's
like a 10 and a 9. Like a 9 is still good, right? So,
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I never said it wasn't good. I'm just like when you talk about continuity and progressive improvement on the matches.
That's true.
That's where I'm at.
Okay. You're good now, yes?
Yes, I did not mean to get so long-winded. Or maybe I did, but I'll be
Yeah, no,
respectful.
you definitely meant
I
it.
will respect.
Brandon, you
definitely-
don't be fucking coy. You meant to be long-winded. You always do.
Oh, hey. Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot to talk about, boys. It's Rock Austin. Come
This
on
was
now.
just the
You know this.
intro. This was just the intro. This is not the whole discussion.
Oh.
That's what we talked
Well,
about.
shoot,
like,
I didn't get the rubric. I'm sorry.
God.
Sorry, continue.
This is
All right.
I'm
our
off.
4th episode of Rivals.
Yeah, this is why. Anyways, all right. So, what
Oh,
criteria do we want to talk about for this? We want to talk about the match quality out of these feuds. We want to talk about what was the other one that you had said, Pierce, when we were
Story going into Mania.
story going into Mania, like the build to warrant this rivalry, and then the results coming out of it. Did the conclusion of these matches lead to good storytelling afterwards, or did it kind of miss the mark? So, start us off with the pre-build. I think it just makes sense to go in order here. Pierce, how did the build go for Cody Roman?
So we'll start off with 39. Cody comes back from injury, comes in at number 30 at the Rumble, wins it, and then they do the little Sami Zayn story to finish up that.
I want to say, I gotta say it because every time it gets brought up, it makes me mad. Cody winning that Royal Rumble as number 30 was stupid.
No, it was a genius thing, and here's why.
No.
Because let me explain.
You cut
before
me
you
off.
just say no.
You cut me off, by the way. So let me finish. Nobody who's pre-announced to be returning at a Rumble should be in the 30 spot. Never mind win. The winning is not the point here. It's announcing him in advance, knowing he's going to win this match, and then having him be the 30. That's a problem. And I will always fight that to the grave.
All right.
I mean, I couldn't fight against that, to be honest.
Here's my
I think
counter
that's right.
argument. I think everybody thought if Sammy comes in if Cody Rhodes comes in before 30, everybody thinks 30 is going to be Sammy, and then Cody gets booed out of the building. Do you it'd be 14-15 all over again? And having him come in at 30 as pre-announced, and then having him take out the Monster and Gunther, people didn't even think about Sammy because he came in because they knew who 30 was because it was going to be Cody. And then you have Sammy don't show up till the main event. It worked out really, really well. It was a genius bit of booking because if Cody comes in before 30, everybody's going to want Sammy to be 30. And it's just nobody's going to be that happy with a Cody win, even if it's, everybody expects Cody to win, because everybody did expect Cody to win that Rumble.
Everybody did expect Cody to win. There's multiple ways you could have alleviated that problem. One is you technically could have had the Roman Kevin match before, which I don't think would have been the right decision, but you could have. You could have had Sammy in the match and just not have him win.
But people would have booed the hell out of it.
You don't know that.
I think that people would have.
You also would think that people would boo the hell out of certain things that have happened now or recently that they don't necessarily, right? We're getting a whole storyline about somebody botching all the time. Nobody's booing that.
Yeah, here comes the Jey Uso hate from you. I get it.
Hey.
Mark the time.
Anyways, I don't want to deviate from the rivals thing, but anytime I hear somebody pre-announced as number 30, it makes me very sad, and I have to say it was a bad decision.
And all the more too for the fact that Gunther did break the record for longest. He trudged through a lot of shit to get to where he got to, and then all of a sudden here comes Cody, and it's like, oh well, it's gonna fucking happen now. And that's the thing too.
They have an incredible mini match at the end of that Rumble.
Gunther never got his lick back. He never got his lick back.
No,
he lost.
He did not.
Crown Jewel.
Yeah, I don't think that was the right decision, but they had to have one. They had to have one face win because Liv and Nia was heel versus heel. So
Yeah.
I get it, but it still that annoys me.
Anyways,
That's coming down
back,
the road, though, I'm sure.
yeah, going back to Roman and Cody. Sorry, I can't help but speak
So
up when I hear about that. Ugh, makes
no,
me,
you're fine. I understand your point of view as long as you understand mine.
yep.
So um they get into the Cody and Roman, and it's very much Roman's pretty much saying you've never even been here. You've never main evented a Mania. Your dad never held this. It was very much, rooted in history, and it was can Cody overcome the odds of the bloodline? And turns out he couldn't, because Solo came back after being ejected from ringside, but I don't think anybody thought Roman was going to win that match. And it turned out to be probably the best choice. At the time, I fucking hated it because it really was a deflating end to Mania because everybody wanted Cody to win. And then you jump forward a year. I don't think people thought. There was a chance Cody was going to win the Rumble, but with CM Punk coming back, I don't think anybody thought that Cody was going to go back to back, especially because back to back hadn't happened since 97 and 98 with Austin.
Still have my
Yep.
stance on that too. That they audibled that match that CM Punk was supposed to win.
I don't think he was, but that's another podcast. And Cody found out that day that he wasn't going to get his shot at Mania, and he willed it into existence. And he pointed at Roman. He said, "It's you. It's time to go again." And then Friday Night SmackDown happens, and you have The Rock come out, and people were happy to see The Rock, but then after the fact, they're like, "Nope, Cody's got to finish the story. Cody's got to finish the story." The whole point of the build is the story, and the build to Mania 40 was insane. You get The Rock turn, you get the final boss, you get Seth coming in to be Cody's shield, and that was a prophetic words because that's what cost Roman the title at the end of the day. And you get the return of the Hollywood music. You get The Rock and the Bloodline. You get both of Roman's entrances for Mania that in both years was here's a god, good luck. And the build to Mania 40 I would say is better than 39, but both of the builds are very, very good.
Okay. I would say, relating to Shawn and the Undertaker, that the build wasn't really what made this. Like, the build was there through them being two of the greatest workers the industry has ever seen. They had a great feud that we documented on our last Rivals episode near the end of October. So you should check that out. But these guys had a significant feud in the end of 1997, starting at SummerSlam, going all the way through to the Royal Rumble. Took up the predominant part of the end of the summer and all of the fall into the winter, where these guys were the focal point of the business. And
And then
after
Shawn's back exploded.
Yeah, and then Shawn's back exploded on a casket, and then noticeably that feud kind of had to stop. There was a conclusive ending to that, regardless, with the whole casket on fire, thanks to Kane. But nevertheless, um, you know, both would leave, both would come back, both would be very much cornerstones of WWE content for a number of years. And then in 2007, we have that spark get reignited with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels being in the finals of the Royal Rumble in 2007. Undertaker goes over, ends up main eventing WrestleMania, wins the title there over. That was over Batista, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And with that Rumble ending, as good as the mini match between Gunther and Cody was, nothing's going to top that between
Correct.
Taker and Michaels. That is
They gave him a solid 15 minutes
amazing.
there. But building up to WrestleMania 25 in 2009, these guys had continual run-ins, and eventually the challenge was made for this match to happen. It was, if I recall correctly, oh no, that was 26. How did 25 start up for this one? Because I remember 26 was Shawn screwing Undertaker at Elimination Chamber, but
So 25, they got their match by Shawn Michaels defeating Vladimir Kozlov for the right to face the
oh
Undertaker.
yeah, see, like that's like I'm just catching up with it now as I'm reading it. Yeah, that's absurd. Like Vladimir Kozlov was just another monster that Vince wanted to push,
He
and
loved double E though.
yeah.
And for a
So
while, he was pretty he actually had a win over the Undertaker.
he
Yeah,
did, like
Lest we forget.
most monsters did, in fairness, because that's the Undertaker's job for a lot of his career is, letting the new shiny monster look good. But so the
Fair.
25 feud build up wasn't actually very good, but the feud
It was okay because they did the way that they did the build, and I apologize for cutting you off,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
it was light versus dark. It was the born again Christian Shawn Michaels facing the devil, essentially. That's
Well,
what the feud was.
the intro at Mania was very visually appealing for that match. Yeah, and like the stakes didn't really feel there though. Like it wasn't for a title, it wasn't main event. It was just a match between two of the best in the business, and we got what we got, which
Well,
we were very lucky to get what we got. But
and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as though when you track Shawn Michaels and Undertaker's rivalry, I don't know that they actually, I don't know specifically that Undertaker had a decisive win over Shawn Michaels ever.
No,
I feel like
he had never beaten him
so
in one-on-one competition. That was the big thing
that was
going
part
on.
of the allure in that as well, because you're having the Undertaker whose streak is now touted, and they're both facing each other in Texas, their home state.
mm,
And then really it's kind of a streak versus streak in a sense. And like you said, like these are both two of the greatest of all time in their prime. So I feel like that was the allure for me for sure when I watched it.
that's fair. That's fair. It's just like in comparison to from 25 to 26, like the build for 26 was really cool because it started at the Slammy Awards
Yep.
where Shawn and The Undertaker were given an award for their 25 match being the match of the year. And Shawn challenged The Undertaker at that show, at that Slammy's award ceremony. And Taker said no. Taker said, like, I have nothing to prove to you. Like, there's no reason for me to accept a challenge from you. And
Taker was champ at this point. I think he was a world heavyweight champion at this point.
yeah, that's true. And then we get to Elimination Chamber, where Michael screws The Undertaker out of defending his title at the Elimination Chamber match, which ends up being won by Chris Jericho. And then the following night, that's where we get The Undertaker to accept, but only under the stipulation that it's streak versus career, where Shawn Michaels has to retire if he loses. So
I think it's worth bringing up that Michaels before Elimination Chamber was like obsessed with getting the match.
he was.
He went into the Royal Rumble. He eliminated Triple H while they were still DX. They were tag champs. They lost the championships because Michaels was just obsessed with this. And in the Royal Rumble, he had that amazing acting after Batista eliminated him, and then he tried to get back in, and he just started super kicking refs, and Triple H is like, "What's going on?" He's like, "You just don't understand." And it eventually led to the Elimination Chamber where he broke through the floor.
Yep. Brandon, you can go ahead.
Oh, I mean, as far as story goes, I mean, but when you span 98 through to 2000 and let's see, 2003.
Yep.
So you're effectively covering the length of the Attitude Era and then some. The story of Rock and Austin is effectively the story of the Attitude Era. I mean, you had two guys who rather inconspicuous origins. You had the ringmaster coming in, you had Rocky Maivia on the other end. And through time and through these tests and trials, you had Austin, with his match against Bret Hart, you had, the Austin 316 speech at King of the Ring in Milwaukee, 1996. You had The Rock becoming the hood ornament for the Nation of Domination, starting to show some personality, starting to get some fan support, and then getting stifled through the corporation, though still being featured very prominently opposite of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you've had effectively two careers that, starting from their biggest initial bout at WrestleMania 15, they feuded for the Intercontinental Championship in the past as well, kind of laid some soil there. But WrestleMania 15 is where it really started for both of them, where it kind of established them in their roles, how they relate to one another. And then as the years go on, you have, if you want to relate it to the Attitude Era, you can argue that WrestleMania 15 being the start, setting the table, introducing the character work, introducing where they stand with the fans, how they stand with each other. And then they continue to go apart, build their own legacies, come back together at WrestleMania 17, arguably the end of the Attitude Era, depending on who you ask. And then you have the swerve of swerves that nobody fucking saw coming. Austin shaking hands with Satan himself per JR, which was a fucking incredibly emotional call. And then you have Austin staying within professional wrestling as a heel, best he can, same as Rock back in the day, right? But you find it hard not to cheer the man because he's just so charismatic and he carries himself, like a champion, goes to the beat of his own drum. The Rock, in and out of wrestling, does Hollywood, comes back, leads the WWF against the Alliance, which was led by Austin at the time. So again, you have these two coming together in a sort of existential way when it's brand versus brand for survival. And then you have, Austin being oddly a prima donna, getting closer to WrestleMania 19. You have him not trying to put people over, but The Rock, has been through his own share of putting people over. Like he put over Brock at SummerSlam 02, and he had a match with Hogan. And in spite of Austin's criticisms to what he felt would be a slow and plodding match, Rock brought his game. Rock didn't dull himself down too much to put himself on Hogan's level. And you look at how the fans reacted to it. It's arguably one of the greatest Mania matches ever. And it showed just why you got to put these marquee matches on last, because when you have Triple H Jericho following that shit, brother, it's just not. It's just not even there. So here comes Hollywood Rock coming back into the business after, some more time away, some more movies being filmed or whatever. And we get what was the prototypical final boss. We get the Rock concert out of it. We get some great, dueling between Rock and Austin there after Austin finally came to his senses about, wanting his ball to be back in WWEF's court. And then WrestleMania 19 was really, at the end of it all, the pinnacle as far as storytelling, as far as the match itself was even. And I mean, it was really the last match for both of them as full-time competitors in the WWE. But there is no better place than WrestleMania for those two to finally send each other off. And it's been a hell of a time for WWE in the following years to try to fill those spots. And you always get people talking about, when it comes to rivals, people talk about Hogan Savage or Hogan Warrior. People talk about Hart and Michaels. But I feel like when you have subsequent rivalries that define generations, Cena, Orton, Reigns, Rollins, or Reigns, Rose, what have you, I feel like people will always compare it to The Rock and to Austin because, as has been evidenced in their WrestleMania matches, where you have a clear beginning, you have a zenith, and you have an epic conclusion. I feel as though every generational rivalry that has come since has been compared to the two of them, because they themselves individually are arguably the biggest stars that professional wrestling has ever or will ever see. And then you put them together and you build the company from damn near death to being what it had become and leading into now what it is. I find it hard to argue that there's a better story than that can be told between the two of them.
I'm gonna disagree with you on one part, because the Mania 15 build was a Vince Russo special, because it didn't really start till after St. Valentine's Day Massacre, because Vince won the Rumble somehow.
Yep.
And then you had the Austin McMahon cage match, and then Paul White gets brought in. The Rock is busy with Mankind, and you can make the argument that Mania 15 probably should have been a triple threat match with Mankind, Stone Cold, and Rock. And it's just very muddy. Mania 17, I would say the build there is fantastic, because, of course, you get the My Way package, you get I need to beat you, Rock. And then Mania 19 is, we didn't know this, but it's Austin's swan song as a full-time wrestler. So, I mean, I'll agree with Mania 17 and 19, but Mania 15 is too muddied.
Yeah, I guess to be fair, I didn't acknowledge as much the build up to WrestleMania 15. I mean, you did, like I said, you had these guys who are kind of just coming into their own, and then you have the initial kind of clashes, which, right, you're kind of playing with the things and experimenting, and you had a lot of weird Attitude Era hijinks. That much I will say. And
Mania 15 was too much. It was more Vince versus Austin than it was Rock Austin. The
right.
build there is just, it's not really, to quote the My Way package, it's bam, non-factor. And for 17, you got to factor in Deborah, though, even though she's a bam non-factor.
She was definitely a non-factor in that, and people have gone on record saying that, and I feel like that was more a shoot statement on Austin's part than anything. Like, that did not belong in that feud whatsoever. It was not necessary.
But it's in the build, and it doesn't help the build. So it's points off for me. I get where you're coming from, but it's just like, Mania 15 is suspect, and Mania 17, while incredible, does have the bam non-factor.
That's fair. I could see where you're coming from on that. But my thought is, like, when you take what they did within each match as well, if you just take what you did within 15 and then you look at how both men developed their legacy leading into 17, and then what 17 meant to both of their legacies.
Should we jump into match quality? Because I'll give you a hot take that Mania 15 match is not that good.
I wouldn't argue
Mania
that
19 are great, but Mania 15, it's not a great match, and Michael Cole spoils it halfway through the show by going, "Hey, check out an interview with the new WWF champion Stone Cold Steve Austin after the show."
Christ, yeah, he sure did.
Like you can't, like, the match was fine, but it was just Attitude Era hijinks on top of hijinks.
Yes, that much I will concur. But again, when you look at the archetypes that are being developed within that match, and then you look at what had
But that's not the argument here. The argument here is match quality. If we're talking,
are we arguing match quality now, or are we still talking about story?
Well, it depends on if we're bridging points here, but I will say that if you guys are
quality,
arguing match quality, y'all are arguing for second place, and it's simple as that. So
I would argue you can. I mean, Mania 25. That's, in my eyes, the greatest Mania match of all time. So I'll take a backseat there. But if we're talking, for both Manias, Rock and Cody, or Rock and Roman and Cody, and Rock and Seth, like, that match had no right being as good as it was. Roman and Cody 1 was fantastic. And then Roman and Cody 2 is the most like sports entertaining match of all time. Like, because it's really a 4-way between Roman, Cody, Smoke, and Mirrors. Like, and if we're talking match quality and we're adding story into it, that is one of the best professional wrestling matches of all time too.
Sure, it is.
But if we're talking pure graps,
I
nothing
mean,
touches Mania 25.
well, Mania 25 alone is like, again, like a top 3 match in wrestling history, like at worst. Like it's going to be impossible to compete against that. But 26 was still also
Very good.
largely heralded as one of the best WrestleMania main events ever.
I think
So
you can make
And
the argument for 39 and 40 too, though.
I agree. I would say at 39, I wasn't like kicking a guy out just for him to come back and end up being the result, the cause for the result. Not the best booking, in my opinion. Just don't throw
that's kind
Solo
of what you'd
out.
expect from the bloodline from
Yeah,
that
it's
point,
Yeah,
though,
bloodline
too.
shenanigans. So
the
yeah,
shenanigans were a lot better handled in 40 than they were in 39 because they had the excuse of it being bloodline rules. 39 was fine.
if we're talking just pure match minus the last 5 minutes, that match fucking rules. You want to add in the last 5 minutes, you kind of you end on a bummer note.
Yeah,
39 was fine.
39 was fine. That's like the best way I can say it. Like it was a good match. I was there. The crowd was into it. There was one woman a section away from us. She was really into it. She was going to murder somebody if Roman didn't win that match. So thank goodness he did. Um, I wish I still had that. I might still have it on video. I might have to share it at some point. Marta and I were having a
Yes.
fucking field day of this guy. This woman. She was screaming at the top of her lungs that Roman had to win. And Cody sucks, and
Damn.
yeah, it was.
Was she a little? Was she a little saucy? Was she
Yeah,
imbibing, perhaps?
yeah. I would hope so for her to be going on the way that she was. She was as if she was screaming bloody murder
She needs
in
some
favor of
excuse, that's
in
for sure.
favor of Roman. But anyways, yeah. I mean, I don't need to speak to 25 at all. 26 was also very, very good. So like if we're talking like pure graps, you guys can fight for second place. Talking about storytelling, I mean, the storytelling in 26 was arguably stronger than in 25.
I would agree.
But both still told very compelling wrestling stories.
I think 25 has the help of Jim Ross on commentary. Jim Ross's commentary in that match is incredible. It has one of Kevin Dunn's. I'm not gonna give this guy compliments ever, so chalk this up. His best shots with after the kick out of the tombstone with Taker just looking defeated, not knowing what he needs to do to defeat this guy. And I mean, it has one of the most horrifying spots ever with the dive over the top and Taker almost dying, and then Shawn Michaels just great acting of count him out, because if Taker couldn't go, Shawn would have won by count out. I don't think people would have liked it, but like if somebody's hurt, But it just Shawn is one of the most underrated in-ring actors there is.
I wouldn't say he's
I feel,
underrated. I think he's pretty highly heralded in that
But
role.
as an actor during his matches, I don't think. I mean, people talk about him in matches as a wrestler. He's top 3 or 4 all time.
Shawn is one
But
of the best sellers in wrestling history. Shawn tells compelling stories in the ring. Just I remember the triple threat match with him, Triple H, and Cena. Like he told a story in the first 2 seconds with that match when he super kicked. Sweet Chin Music. Sorry, don't want to be disrespectful to the
there's
move.
a
oh,
difference.
But Sweet Chin Music to Triple H within the first 5 seconds of the match. Like
And then you
that.
get seen as bad. You get seen as bad acting with the what the fuck. Sorry, I
So
had to point
yeah,
that
no,
out.
but Sean has always been very good at telling a story without it being like facial expressions and selling of moves and things like that. Like he's always been very good at that.
Right.
Yeah, Sean's always been a showman.
He is the showstopper. Um, yeah, I mean, 25. If we're talking pure graps, best match in Mania history, bar none. Uh, if we're talking from a pure story and everything standpoint, I think Mania 40 Night 2 is probably the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. I'm going to throw out the hot take there. So,
Yeah, I think 40 and 26 are pretty neck and neck. 40 is probably going to have the longer lasting story in the annals of history when it comes to professional wrestling, but 40 and 26
and
are right there. Whereas, but I would also
you can
say
make,
17's right there too, right?
I was
So,
going to say you can make the argument for 17 too, but the turn from Stone Cold, it was just misjudged and mistimed. It was just not the time to do it. They could have turned him at any time that year, but it just
Within character, it did make perfect sense. Like it's like with Cena at the Chamber, right? Like it's a man who's understandably recognizing that he's probably getting to be past his prime. He's running out of opportunities, and he wants to be the top guy. So here's Austin literally making a deal with the devil, and his promos and every bit of behavior and demeanor that has led up to that seem to indicate it. But I mean, right, Austin and Rock, they made that match happen last minute because those are the two guys. Those are the biggest merch sellers. They're the biggest ticket sellers. They're the biggest media moguls. Well, Austin 316 shirt, I believe, is still, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is still one of like the top selling wrestling t-shirts
it,
of
it's
all
the
time.
it's the top selling of all time. It's not
by
one of it
far.
is.
Yeah, it's almost the top selling annually still to this day. Like,
It's the biggest money line ever.
So you
And
figure, right, when you take something like that and you flip it on its head, then like, right, you're gonna piss off a lot of people, especially when you do it in Texas. That was a ballsy
nobody
decision.
in that stadium wanted. It was a very ballsy decision, and it could have worked. It just didn't because then instead of being this killer heel, and Triple H's injury may have played into it, but like he became like Vince's stooge and like was singing fucking Kumbaya and needed to hug Vince all the time and it was just it
Which
just didn't work.
was pretty funny. I mean,
It,
in
it was
hindsight, it was pretty fucking
Stone
funny.
Cold going crazy, and then the invasion happened, and Stone Cold was the leader of the invasion, and that didn't make any fucking sense.
oh, but you still have
Well,
that promo where he's with Team WWE still, and he's parroting everything that Vince says. That's a classic one. Trying to break the Undertaker. He
yeah,
literally repeats every single line Vince says to try and get the Undertaker to laugh. That was good shit.
yeah, trying to pop the dead man.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
I'll say this too. You say that the invasion thing with Austin taking the helm made no sense. When you have Austin, or you have Vince rather, saying that he needs the old Stone Cold, like what was the old Stone Cold? Like the old Stone Cold was the guy I'm sure that wanted to pop out in WCW, the guy who went on ECW and put Bischoff and Dusty and Flair and Hogan all on blast, saying that you didn't know what the fuck you had effectively. So, I mean, this is a guy who I think was just showing the world, like, this is where I came from and this is what they could have had in a weird sort of way. And also sticking it to Vince at the same time, who, oddly enough, like, when you look at it's weird how you have both Hogan and Rock, or Austin and Rock, rather, and their interactions with Vince and their, like, approval from Vince kind of affecting their characters. So, like, you have Vince who is making The Rock his corporate champ, and this is people wanting to cheer The Rock. This is The Rock building up momentum, and then we're just going to be like, well, we'll keep that down for now. We got something better on the horizon or whatever. Same thing kind of happened with Austin there for a bit too. You had Austin, with Vince and to a lesser extent Triple H, and they have their little alliance, no pun intended necessarily, but then this is effectively Austin being stifled, and then you have The Rock coming up, who captains Team WWF, and then obviously you want to, when you have The Rock coming back in any capacity, it's kind of like with when he came back before WrestleMania 27, I want to say, when The Rock came back.
Yep.
Yeah, you have The Rock come back, and you need the people to give the pops, right? The people's champ is back. So I
And
don't
he
know, I thought it
buried
was funny,
Booker
but
T.
between the two of them, I feel like whichever one was the guy that you had two mega faces, and whichever one you wanted to be like the upper or the top in that case, like you had Vince side with the other in order to kind of create that natural polarity that would come from two mega forces coming in like that. Maybe I got too long winded about that, but that was something I kind of noticed. I thought it was
Well, it seems like you're kind of
kind of
going
neat.
towards the third option, which is what happened after the matches. So,
Ah,
which we didn't really talk about, like the quality of WrestleMania 19, which it's a great match. It's a great match. Stone Cold to end his career on. It's, I mean, the OMR, one more round. It was a great piece of storytelling that nobody really picked up on,
mm-hmm.
and it was, it was a great match.
Well, and I mean, it was Rock fully actualized too. Like this was The Rock had always been kind of in Austin's shadow in a sense coming up. Like, Austin signed his autograph with number one, and it pisses The Rock off because why the fuck don't people think The Rock's the number one guy in the company? Who says he can't be? And then when you go through the evolution of their characters and you finally come to the end, and here's The Rock, he's done it all by age 30. He's already been a multi-time, he was the record holding WWE champion at the time. And here he is now, like finally on par, if not Austin's better, finally gets a W over him.
The Rock has done
And
it all except beat that bald-headed candy ass at WrestleMania.
yeah, and what a way to
And
hang your hat on a wrestling career.
and we didn't talk about like the build up there. There was a second Limp Bizkit package that they did for that with their
There was.
what was the song name? It's Crack Addict, which is
Yeah,
not released on any CD for them, so it's very hard to find, but it is an absolute banger of a song.
that's it. You said it. Now I'm going to have to go on Spotify. Here we go.
It's
Do, do, do.
it's on there as a podcast. They never released it as like a song.
What?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
somebody else uploaded it as a podcast, and it's not about
Interesting.
doing crack. Donnie, if you were curious, it's not about them being addicted to crack cocaine. It's about them being addicted to cracking skulls when punks start static.
Great.
Oh, I would have guessed something else, but a little ahead of their time, moms. I figured it's about Fred Durst eating ass, but never mind. I will
You did like
rescind
the
that thought.
chocolate starfish.
And the hot dog flavored water.
All right, we are off
Anywho,
topic. So, as far as like pure graphs, we'll give it to Taker Michaels at 25. As far as in-ring storytelling and match quality, what are we giving it to?
well, I might be biased. You said
And
to
that's kind of the point of the discussion, Brandon, is to show our biases.
all right, so if we're saying in-ring quality and storytelling collectively,
Yes.
hmm.
Without picking your own. That's just the easiest way to solve this issue. Because I would pick
Okay,
I
fine.
would
I've got to
pick
give it
Mania.
Mania 26.
I would give it to Mania 40. So that makes you the swing vote there, Brandon.
Well, damn.
Which we didn't
You
talk
know,
about this either, and I apologize, Brandon, but there's another incredible, it's like a hidden gem video package with a cover of Running Up That Hill between
uh,
Taker and Michaels for 26. You guys gotta find it. It is absolutely just it's like a somber, it's very like it's kind of like an art house piece. It's a beautiful package. So if you haven't seen it, listeners, and you guys as well, definitely go check it out. Brandon, go ahead. I apologize.
I'll have to give it a look see. If we're talking collectively, I feel like for storytelling, I'd have to go with 40. Match telling, I'd have to go with 26. Like, I'll be honest, like 40 to me, like, though I will argue it is one of the most sports entertaining spectacles that I've seen, the match itself was like, I've seen better. I mean, a lot of it came down to the last 5 minutes for me, which I'm sure it did for a lot of people as well. Not to say anything bad about, Rhodes and Reigns prior to that, but I mean, it was a lot of like, Reigns peacocking and shit, and Cody doing an initial little counter here and there, and then here comes the Bloodline, and then here comes Cena, and it just kind of all bled out from there, as you would expect from a Bloodline rules match. I mean, I don't know what we initially would have expected from a Bloodline rules match, but nevertheless, it was very
More
sports
Samoan
entertaining.
props.
Yes. They didn't whip him with Ula Fala, though. That thing looked spiky as shit. That probably would hurt. If you wrapped your fist in that bitch, like, pow!
Like Donniebrooks get like the whole bar set up, right? Why did a Bloodline rules match not get any sort of fanciness to
Right.
it?
They could have had like a Samoa Joe style like tribal entrance where they got like the dancers up on the stage for Reigns and shit. I mean, I'm not knocking what they got, because
Yeah,
when they had the
Reigns
Philharmonic,
came out like a god.
yeah, I couldn't knock that. But
All right,
I don't
Brandon, what
know.
are you giving it to?
I already told you, so I kind of split it. So
You
like,
gotta pick one.
oh, for
You can't
Christ.
you can't split your vote.
You know what? Just because you said that, WrestleMania 26. There you go.
There we
Well,
go.
that feels like an attack on me.
Sorry, you're getting me all anxious, getting me all defensive. So I've lashed out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Well, I did,
I
but
think like the story, like when you think of the storytelling elements, they were stronger in the 40 match. But if you combine in the wrestling part of 26, we're ignoring 25 completely here because again, that's the gold standard. 26, the wrestling and the story combined is probably a little bit stronger than 40. But 40 is like the true sports entertainment experience. So like,
Mania Night 2 for WrestleMania 40 is like the most WrestleMania match of all time. There's no other way to put it.
how you can't have that for 39 prior years is a good question. But let's talk about post match stuff. I'm going to lead it off here because it's pretty easy for me to lead it off. After 25, Sean and Taker did basically nothing.
Taker became world champ
He became
by
world champ, but
squashing
yeah,
CM Punk, which still makes me
yes,
mad.
yeah, like, but he was gone until SummerSlam, then came back, attacked Punk, won the title, and then got screwed by Sean. Ended up ending Sean's career, and then the Raw after Mania, Sean does his farewell, which Triple H comes out to like say how important Sean was before Michaels does his speech. Triple H is like, oh, he decided to talk about Sean's career, and then he just gets attacked by Sheamus because like that's very relevant to what's going on right now.
And Taker comes out and gets fucking booed. I think that should be brought up because not many people can get people to boo the Undertaker besides retiring Shawn Michaels.
Well, he did tip his hat though,
He did do that.
so I mean, and then Taker went on to what did Taker do after that? Like it wasn't anything super exciting, I don't think.
He had an awful feud with Kane over the world title.
That sounds right.
And Paul Bearer came back and then turned on him a week later. It was a classic Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
was that before or after the Undertaker poured cement on Paul in that big concrete box?
That was
Way
after.
after.
Yes, the
Way
cement
after.
was like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was getting my memories all mixed.
Yeah.
Anywho,
I'll give you this, Donnie. This story leads into the then Triple H matches.
Yes.
at Mania. You could tie it all together because it's really The Undertaker versus DX for 4 years.
Yes. Which again,
And
that was a case where the first one wasn't as good, and the second one that was also like fantastic. Best kick out in WrestleMania history was in that
you could
second
make the
match.
argument for 27's Tombstone kickout from The Undertaker. That match was like the first time where you see The Undertaker being a human versus the undead demon. You know what I mean?
Nah, the super
barely
kick
beat
into
him.
the pedigree kick out is the greatest kick out in WrestleMania history.
Right,
And
I'd
a
say
prime
wrestling
example of
history.
how Michaels is a great in-ring actor.
Yes.
His little
I'd say
turbine.
wrestling history. Not much nothing tops it except maybe the Kenny Omega kick out at 1 from the tag team match at Revolution. But
Yeah.
like,
Anyways, but like my point here is that their post feud stuff. Taker got an extra couple years with Triple H, which was fine, but like the filler stuff wasn't particularly exciting at all. And yeah, Shawn Michaels
and then
retired. So,
and Shawn Michaels never wrestled again after
oh
WrestleMania
yeah,
26. Never again.
yeah. He sure
No, he
never
definitely did
wrestled
not.
again in Saudi Arabia. That never happened.
That's
He
like
definitely
in the
never.
Shadow World that doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was definitely no DX
The Shadow
versus
Realm for
Brothers of
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Destruction match in
Definitely not
Riyadh.
paid for with blood money, to
Anyways,
pop the
Oh
silly.
man.
what happened after your
So
guys'
bad.
feuds?
Well, what's happened after mine is still going on right now because WrestleMania 39, Cody says he wants a rematch at Raw after Mania and a terrible Raw after Mania, and then Brock murdered him, and
Yeah,
Cody
that show
gets the Brock.
sucked. I
But the
was
Brock
there.
Sounds
feud
like
is
something
very
Brock would
good.
do.
The Brock feud is very good. And it really stamps Cody as the guy because Brock legitimately gave him his flowers after their SummerSlam match. And then you get the seeds planted at that SmackDown where Jay and Cody were tag champs, I think, at the time. And Cody and Roman finally get face to face again. Post 40, Cody's been on this incredible run as champ. Roman's been finishing up his bloodline business and now is in a blood feud with the man he's never forgiven in Seth Rollins and the man who screwed him over at the Royal Rumble in CM Punk.
Still seems absurd
And
that Roman has never got a rematch.
yeah, I would agree, but I mean,
Rhea Ripley's crying about getting her rematch that they're granting her next week on Raw, and her reign
I
was how many weeks? Like she literally beat Liv and then almost immediately lost it like within what 2 months,
yeah,
and
about 2
she's
months. I think
crying for a
56 days.
rematch. Meanwhile, you have one of the greatest championship reigns ever.
I'd
Doesn't
say
even
the
get a
greatest.
rematch.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the bloodline business kind of took forefront for Roman, and if he doesn't get a rematch, it sucks. But at the same time, I think Roman's also the type of guy where he could be like, "Give me a fucking match for the title," and they'd be like,
So
"Okay, Roman."
I actually want to talk about that really quick because if I don't know if you guys watched SmackDown last week, uh, CM Punk came out and was talking about the relevance of their match for the triple threat, or was this on Monday? I'm mixing it up. Maybe it was on Monday that it was on Monday that they were talking about
This
it.
is Friday.
No. But CM Punk came out on Monday on Raw. I was talking about how he has to review the contracts. The contract signing is this Friday.
Oh yeah,
And said they might need to sweeten the pot a little bit associated to this match. Could this triple threat match be a number one contenders match, which then
Easily.
might get us back to another Cody versus Roman match?
Oh, you want to
It's
throw?
possible. I don't.
You want to? But then you got Heyman who owes Punk a favor as well. So then where does that factor in?
Like I
That
said,
of course they
this is
keep.
the match that's really the most tough to say who's going to win, which we'll do in a few weeks. Listen
Yes.
along and follow us.
Follow
So
us on our road to WrestleMania
yeah, we actually kicked
41.
it off here on the podcast this week. But yeah, okay, so that it's still happening, but unceremoniously ended between the two of them, even though they teamed up like 6 months later, which led Kevin Owens to go insane. And
Yep.
yeah, okay. How about you, Brandon?
Well, I mean, they kind of ended their careers. That's kind of what happened.
It sure did.
Um, but I mean, you definitely laid the groundwork and it left fresh soil for a new era to be born. Granted, it was, I mean, how the fuck do you, again, ever replace either Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock? But alas, John Cena was born, and John Cena, for better or for worse, carried the WWE through that time following The Rock and Austin's departures, was the centerpiece of the company, and now is a 16-time world champion on the cusp of his 17th. Will he win his 17th at WrestleMania 41 versus Cody Rhodes? I guess we'll have to find out. But on the note of Rock and Austin, I mean, The Rock, I feel like, and it's funny too, because you look at how their rivalry is effectively The Rock was never able to fully get one up on Austin, particularly at WrestleMania. But then after The Rock beats Austin at WrestleMania, you look at how The Rock stars continue to rise within and without wrestling. And then you look at Austin, and Austin, while he is like inarguably one of the biggest figures in all of pro wrestling, he really,
The
I don't
biggest.
know, I feel like his place compared to The Rock he's kind of plateaued. He's kind of stayed right where he is. Like, and rightfully so, right? He's retired. He's 60 years old now. He's got no real reason besides Kevin Owens apparently to get back into a wrestling ring. Maybe hopefully, glass shattering at WrestleMania 41 for some odd reason involving The Rock as well. But The Rock, I feel like, has continued to represent wrestling outside of the sports entertainment bubble, right? Like everybody knew him as The Rock, even after he ditched the moniker for the longest. And then he comes back, has this generational series of matches with John Cena. You could probably make that a subject of this kind of a thing as well.
No, it is not on this list.
I
Because they
mean, I'm
lied.
just saying.
They lied to us, Brandon. They said once in
Yeah,
a lifetime, and then it became twice.
well, you had to figure, I mean, they ran Rock Hogan 2, right? Granted, it wasn't at WrestleMania, thank God. But
But they said that was icon versus icon. They did not say
yeah,
a once in a lifetime match.
well, I mean, I feel like with the build to Rock Hogan, kind of going on a slight tangent, but I feel like they built that as like, this is something you're never going to see again. Nothing seen before, nothing seen since,
But they did not.
until he
They
puts the
did
red and
not
yellow
put
back
that
on.
in the goddamn tagline.
No, they did not. They did not sell tickets that way.
Vince
That's true.
straight up lied to us, and it has annoyed me since 2013.
To be fair, they had to book that match a year in advance, and there was no guarantee The Rock was going to come back for a second one, especially with how busy his schedule was. I didn't think there was going to be any guarantee that they would have, especially the year after. No way. Like hindsight is always 2020, though, right? But like, I don't know. At the time, I really thought
We're kind of getting off track. You're kind of going like way past the match. What was the story after the matches? You're not really going too much into that. You're going more into their just careers in general.
well, and that was kind of the theme that I introduced earlier too, right? It's something of a
But
helix.
that's
There's
specifically
intersections.
19. What was 15's build after the match? What was 17's?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Let me dust off my notes here. Got to flip a light on. Well, I can tell you for sure that after 15, coming up to 15, of course, you had like the Austin Winslow era in 1998, where he's, mollywhopping the shit out of Kane, of all people, for a one-day title reign. You got The Rock being WWF champion by winning Deadly Games at Survivor Series. 15 happens. following that, I mean, like I said, Rikishi did it for The Rock,
Well,
and
isn't 15? So they run it back at Backlash in a better match than
yeah,
they had at Mania. And then
yeah,
isn't that like the start of the corporate ministry, which is one of the dumbest storylines they ever did? Or
it
am
was
I?
Vince Pierce. It was Vince all along.
Yeah, Vince said,
I
"Hey,
think you're
Undertaker,
correct.
kidnap and impregnate my daughter," which, with what we know now, might be a little more on brand than what we thought.
Right.
Um,
No, but well, yeah, when you have like the two of them, like I said, you have the two of them kind of splitting off because you can't, keep a good thing like that together too long. Otherwise, it kind of loses the savor and the flavor. So you had CEO Austin, you had after WrestleMania 15, you had an Austin Triple H Rock triple threat that would have happened, but then Rikishi did it for the people. You had, um, oddly enough, I think you had Austin helping The Rock win the title, but that was before Rikishi got revealed to be the driver,
that
and then
was
Triple H being willing to pay
so.
for it.
They did WrestleMania 16 or 2000, whatever you want to call it. They had the McMahon in
The
every
Fatal Four
corner,
Way.
and then Triple H for some reason wins, and then they have Backlash 2000 where Austin comes back and helps The Rock
Hmm.
win.
Right.
And then 17 obviously just kind of goes into the invasion with Austin losing his mind and Rock going to Hollywood for the first time.
Well, and not to, you can't leave out the fact that by WrestleMania 17, The Rock was already a 6-time WWE champion, which is craziness. But especially when you consider his first title win was what, 2 years prior? 3 years prior,
Well,
perhaps?
we harp on that there need to be shorter title reigns now, but in the Attitude Era, they kind of did hot potato with the WWE title and most titles all the time. The Rock
Oh, yeah.
never really held it for that long until I think his title reign going into Mania 29, which was still only like 90 days.
Yeah, it wasn't really anything to sing about.
So so just kind of conclude this point, it seems like the builds after, because May 19, then Austin goes and becomes the sheriff of Raw, and then Rock has the one off with Goldberg, and then comes back and he's a good guy Rock again for Rock and Sock. It
Yeah, for
seems
a brief
like
little bit leading into 20.
it was very much Attitude Era hijinks, and then not much else.
I mean, if you want to count those as like pivotal moments, if you want to count those as like defining bits of aftermath, I mean, they happened. You can't argue that they didn't, but
No, but I think aftermath wise, I don't know where I'd kind of put my vote between the two of you. To be honest, I think I
well,
kind of lean more towards Donnie's post 25, because once December hits, then you get that build.
Yeah, and I don't even think that
well,
was particularly compelling for an extended period. Like if I was to pick, I would pick between the three. Um, I'd probably have to go Cody Roman just because we were so spoiled with matches between those guys and then like tag matches and then like that's the thing with that era is like everything prior and post it was still like more of the same but just with other nonsense happening, whereas the Cody Roman matches felt special. So
And
yeah,
and obviously I'm not an Attitude Era guy. I was 3, so like. But like you go back and yeah, you could say it hasn't aged well, but like it's just car crash nonsense most of the time. There's not really too much connecting story besides Austin and Vince.
well,
So it's
no, and
very much
nobody
hard to
ever.
say what the week to week is, and the storylines are all going to be jumbled to shit.
I mean, for sure, and I'm not going to argue the point at all that current storytelling in WWE is unlike anything else we've ever seen. Like anything Bloodline and after has been arguably some of the best narrative in pro wrestling. So for that, I mean, it's hard to argue against Rhodes and Reigns in that respect. I guess what I'm speaking to, and it's different, right? Because it's not like you have year after year after year. Like it's like it comes together, it hits, goes apart, comes back together after some development, and it hits, and then there's more stuff that happens after that, like a broader aftermath, I guess you can say, and then it comes back together, and then it hits again. And it's not like it necessarily always has, you know, those two specifically interacting with each other continuously. Kind of like how I feel like, Rhodes' obsession with, unseating the tribal chief. Like that was, it's not like you had Rock chasing. Now, if you had Rock chasing Austin and his stardom continuously, as opposed to like the beaten path that they both kind of went down, then we might have a different conversation. But that's like you said, right? The Attitude Era was a different time, and you had two guys.
It was Crash TV, and
Yeah,
at the time in the '90s, that's what was popular.
It definitely was, and the ratings and the earnings at that time would reflect that,
But if we're
and the fact that
talking,
it beat out WCW.
if we're talking
And
pure post storylines, you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna beat Roman and Cody. And you can bring in, they became bigger stars after this. Rock became the biggest star in Hollywood, but that's not really an effect because of these matches. It's more because of the type of performer that Dwayne Johnson is. And he, with or without wrestling, I think he probably still would have been fine,
perhaps,
So
I mean, a lot of the Rock's build and a lot of the Rock's development was driven by the fact that he wanted to be better than Stone Cold, though. Like, if The
but
Rock didn't
that's
have
not the
Austin as a
reason that he
rival,
went. It's not the reason he went Hollywood. You know what I mean? He was going to get those Hollywood
well,
roles regardless.
arguable. I feel
He's
like,
the most charismatic person in wrestling. That's why John Cena is now a Hollywood star. That's why probably Roman Reigns will be at some point too. It's very much it's just how it works.
well, I mean, I guess that's kind of apples to oranges in my perspective, though, because again, to keep it simple for my sake, like you have Austin at the top of his game who has taken the business to new heights. And then you have The Rock who wants to be there right alongside him and be better than him. And if you look at The Rock's promo work and you look at The Rock's character work as they're getting started, the both of them, The Rock is not The Rock. He's starting to become bits and pieces there. But if it wasn't for Austin, like iron sharpens iron, right? So if it wasn't for those clashes, if it wasn't for that competitive nature between the both of them, I don't know how much you see the rock star rise, or if you see it rise as quick. Maybe he doesn't get those Hollywood deals until he's in his mid 30s or even his early 40s. Who knows how long the Rock stays in professional wrestling and doesn't go to Hollywood if he doesn't, build his chops alongside arguably like one of the most charismatic individuals in professional wrestling history in Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And that's an
Because
argument for another day, I think.
that's just my point, though.
Yeah. So as a whole, what are we voting, guys?
Well, I would say for long term and like just overall impact on the business, I'd have to slightly edge out Rock and Austin. However, to the point that I made earlier and to what you brought up, it's hard to argue the quality of storytelling in today's WWE. So as far as stuff that's been going on and stuff that's currently going on, I'd have to go with Rhodes and Reigns.
Donnie, what do you think?
It's tricky when two of these things are so far in the past and one of them is still actively going. Like recency bias makes me want to say Cody and Roman, but at the same time, I think back as we. It's funny we talked about all these criteria and Rock and Austin weren't on the top of any of them necessarily, but at the same time, like when you think of WrestleMania, I think you think of those two and more specifically Undertaker and Shawn, than you would Cody and Roman.
Right.
So if I wasn't picking my own in that sense, I would be picking Rock and Austin. I still think that the feud with Undertaker and Shawn, and then by extension Undertaker and DX, I guess you could say, is still like the best full like end to end that you get over WrestleManias. But yeah, I would give it to Rock and Austin.
I think the recency bias is real, which is why I picked Cody and Roman. But I think just as a story, there's not much better. But like if we're talking end to end, and if I can factor in Triple H, I got to give it to Shawn and Taker, because I mean 25 is just it's just magic. There's nothing better. If we're talking story, I have to give it to Rock and Austin at X7 specifically. But if we're talking complete, I gotta go with Shawn Taker.
So it sounds like we're just rock paper scissoring this one. That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, this was a very fun discussion, because there's so many different angles we could have came from. We could have brought in the greatest WrestleMania rivalry in history. We didn't even talk about Brock and Roman.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know, as much shit as I give it,
It's bad. There's one good match out of their three, and it's the
it
first
had
one.
some meaning. Yeah, the middle match, I don't know what the fuck that ever was. That was
It was bad.
it was
The third
bookended.
match was meh. But yeah, I think we're stuck on the rock paper scissors, and I think that's okay for this episode of Rivals.
Yep. All right, where does that lead us to for next week as we get closer to WrestleMania 41?
It's our first time at the Ope-Eh Happy Hour, where we invite our friend JPJ Gaming, and we talk about the greatest WrestleManias in history. Gonna have a nice little
Yes,
round
sir.
table like we did today. Not really gonna argue much. We're just gonna have a little fun discussion.
Much.
Well, if someone says something out of line.
Well, you know.
WrestleMania
No, I'm
27
excited.
is the greatest WrestleMania of all time.
Yeah, that just gets a straight mute booted from the discussion.
The old mute boot.
Yeah,
No, I'm excited. I like expanding our horizons. I like, doing a little community outreach, bringing friends in, being like, hey, crack a few.
That's the point of a happy hour. But I think
I'm excited.
that closes us out for tonight, guys. Anything else you guys want to say?
I'm good. I'd like to know what's going to be coming up at Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, 0 fucking matches. I told you, they fucking busted their nut at Roadblock. I told you. Now what are they going to do?
Was possibly hurt and possibly has visa issues, so they got to get that figured out. But
yeah, that's talking about little stuff. Like, I know we just talked about this. There's a little stuff going on in wrestling otherwise. Yeah, I'd like to know what's going on at Stand and Deliver. I'm supposed to be at that show sitting third row.
And I'm third row for Bloodsport. I'd like to know those matches.
Speaking of TNA, what the fuck? There. Gail Kim got fired?
That's
Speaking of TNA.
you can take that in your TNA there. Just talk about
it. Oh, I'm a yell.
Understandable. But I think it's time to close this out. So, as always, thanks for stopping in the Ope-Eh 3-Way. Have a beer on us. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.